Imagine a research tool that allowed you to work conveniently over the internet with almost any size of participant group on almost any kind of research, from insightful qualitative studies to empirical quantitative studies, or both. This tool exists, and it's called a market research online community. Branded communities, custom panels, online research communities, market research communities, whatever you want to call them, as an engagement platform, market research online communities are one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox of market researchers. Hello, my name is Duncan McGregor, the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Insightrix Research in Saskatoon, Canada, and your podcast host. Episode 6 of our podcast is all about market research online communities. We'll look into what they are, how they're used, and explore some of the research one can accomplish using this awesome research tool. I'll be speaking with Megan McDowell, Account Manager with Insightrix Communities, about market research online communities to get an idea about what they are and what makes them tick. As one of the account managers at Insightrix Communities, she's an expert in the online communities Insightrix builds, making her a great source of information on the subject. She'll discuss an ongoing Insightrix research project, Young Futures, as an example of one of the ways market research online communities can be employed. Later in the episode, we're joined by Thome, member and Insights Manager with Affinity Credit Union, and Cody, Market Analyst with the same organization. They'll take time out of their busy schedules to offer a view from the client side about why and how market research online communities worked for their organization's research needs. Bulletin board discussions and diaries, surveys and quick polls, engagement and participation. All that and more on this episode of Stories of Market Research, the Insightrix Podcast. Hi, we're here with my guest today, Megan McDowell. How's it going today, Megan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Today we're talking about market research online communities, or custom panels, branded communities, online research communities. Actually, what we're doing is talking about what we like to call MROCs, market research online communities. I don't suppose you could give us an idea of how these things work.
Sure. So an online community is a place where you can gather a number of people and engage in research activities as many times as you like. So what this means is that you would recruit people to be members of your community. Mm-hmm. You could then run surveys with them, online discussions with them, polls. You have the ability to go ahead and send email campaigns out to them. Basically, once you have people uploaded and members of your online community, you mm-hmm. have the ability to engage with them as much or as little as you like.
That's a really handy research tool.
Yes, it is.
Well, there's a bunch of them out on the market and a bunch of them that are operating, but Insightrix itself actually operates its own division, the Insightrix Communities division.
Yes.
We have our own software. So rather than talking about what everybody else does, we'll talk about ours and use it to define the entire genre or the entire, what am I trying to say?
Sector?
Sure. You were saying that they work to allow you to do research with all kinds of different folks that you've got as a sample. What kind of research are you usually doing through these things?
It really depends on the client. We have 3 target client groups that we are looking at. So the first one is market researchers, the other is corporate researchers, and then the third one is municipal government. So the needs for each of those 3 groups are going to vary a lot.
A whole lot.
But basically the premise is that you can go ahead and run surveys, and then once you have people part of your community, you can target your research activities based on either demographic type information mm-hmm. or information that they've indicated in previous surveys.
Oh, neat. So you're able to do a great deal of targeting with these things, with your sample group, meaning that through profile surveys, that kind of thing, you can just nail down exactly who you want to talk to and get really good strategic information from those people.
Definitely. So basically the only mandatory activity is the personal details survey for our community. And what this does is it gathers the initial demographic type information that you're going to use to target your research activities. So that's gender, age, location, or anything specific to the client. So if there's any qualifying type questions, maybe, for instance, a municipal government only wants to hear from the people who live within their city. You could put that qualifying question in there to make sure that you're only hearing from the people that you want to, and then you can break it down however you want it to. The way that it works is that the invitation rules are used to target each activity that you run. And it functions in a way that you can do it based off old survey responses, discussion responses, demographic information, or any qualifying type information.
So like job titles, that kind of jazz.
Yep.
How many kids you got in the home, how much money you make.
Exactly.
Color your eyes are. We can get it right down to that, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty impressive. So you can do all kinds of different research with them. From what I understand, you can do mixed method studies, or you can do specific to just qual studies, quantitative studies, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. So we do offer two different types of qualitative research. They are two different discussion types. One is the bulletin board study, where you're able to have a many-to-many conversation. So what this means is that the moderator will post the topic of conversation. Anybody who's invited has the ability to see the post and see other people's posts and then post themselves. So they could reply to the moderator overall, or they could reply to somebody else's post who've already contributed to the conversation.
Well, that's pretty cool, because I've seen a couple other communities out there, and a lot of them are just moderator to person or person to moderator, and then the people who are actually members of the community don't have any opportunity to communicate with each other.
Right.
So that's a pretty cool benefit.
Yeah, we do also have that option as well. We refer to it as a diary mode study. So it's based, it's meant for more private or more sensitive topics, usually money.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so people can go ahead and just have a one-to-one between themselves and the moderator. So we do offer the flexibility for both.
I was about to say that's very flexible. So, Megan, not all communities are the same, that's for sure, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, no, they can be bigger, smaller, larger. They can do all kinds of different stuff. In fact, the Insightrix Communities platform is ridiculously flexible, but I've seen communities that are from like 6 people to communities that are in the thousands.
Yep. So we have run projects where there's been actually about 30 to 50 people, but we've also run panels that have 25,000 members. So what we do offer is that you have the ability to grow your community up to 15,000 members on our base licensing fee.
15,000?
Yes.
Wow.
So that is usually a very high number for people to actually grow to. That being said, that isn't the ceiling. We do offer pricing structures if your community does exceed that 15,000 member.
So, as I understand it, a problem with this kind of research can sometimes be participation, getting people to actually engage with the stuff, getting them recruited, retaining them is also another big deal.
Yep.
I know in Insightrix Communities, we're actually right down the end, wrapping up actually what we call our Young Futures project. It's on month 10 of 12 months.
Yes.
It was a project that we were doing with millennials, is that correct?
Yes.
A really hard to get a hold of group?
That's right. Yeah.
Could you maybe, let's use this as a bit of a case study, explain how these things work through the example of the Young Futures project.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to play a major role in this project. And what we did is we recruited 20 millennials from our provincial research panel, which is Sasquatch.ca. And what we did is we targeted people based on their age. So we wanted to make sure that they were within the millennial age group. But then we also were careful to make sure that they were equally represented between early millennials and late millennials. So 18 to 25 and then 26 to 34 were our two groups. The other thing we measured was that we were careful to make sure there was equal representation between males and females.
Okay.
And then the last factor was we wanted equal representation from kind of the 4 corners of the province. So we did North, South, Regina, Saskatoon. Those are not corners, but those are...
Yeah, well, if you're not familiar with the Saskatchewan geography, it's a very large province. It's very spread out. And frankly, there's a lot of differences between folks who live up north, folks who live down south, because we're talking about, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers or 600-700 miles difference.
Yeah.
So there's some big reasons why you want to make sure that you get that geographic distribution, correct?
Yeah, definitely. The other qualifiers that we wanted were that people identified to be comfortable using technology, and that people were comfortable expressing their opinions online. So what we did is once we had our sample chosen from Sasquatch, we informed them that we'd be running this Young Futures study and that it would be going on for a year. And we invited them to participate in the first month and then also gave them the option to opt in for all the remaining months.
When it comes to recruitment, how did you get these folks to sign up in the first place?
We targeted the group based off of those parameters in Sasquatch. Once we had a shortlisted sample, we had the interviewers in the call center reach out to these people, inform them of the project, and then get them to agree to participate. And then from there, we started the project. Basically, at the beginning, 20 out of 20 agreed to participate throughout the whole project.
Okay.
As of right now, participation rates are really, really good. It's not uncommon to have 20 out of 20 people participating each month. The worst month we've ever had, we still had 18 out of 20 participating.
That's 10 months in.
That's 10 months in, yep.
Wow. So the engaging them is a very big part of it. Do you find engaging them on things that they're actually interested in is a very big part of that?
I think it has a role. I mean, that being said, I don't think every single one of the 10 topics we've touched on could interest every single person.
Fair enough.
But I do genuinely think that people like to be part of a project and like to see it play out. So in my experience, people people do respond well to incentives, but people also do just genuinely like to have their voice heard.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have the misconception that they need to throw a lot of money behind something like this and then highly incentivize, which isn't the worst idea, but sometimes it's unnecessary, and sometimes you can have great participation success just by having an outlet for people to share their story and share their voice.
So what kind of research were we actually doing with the Young Futures Project? You said there were 12 topics?
There's 12 topics.
10 so far?
Yep. So it's meant to be a year-long project. Each month has its own specific topic, and each month has a mixed methods approach. So the way that we usually approach it is that there's one survey and 2 discussions. And we vary in terms of the order that this appears each month. But I think that it gives people a good, it gives them an outlet to share their story, to answer surveys, so we have some quant and some qual information for each topic. We did have one lady who was maybe lost in communication, and she actually reached back out and was wondering why we haven't contacted her. So
right on.
The fact that she was really keen on being involved and participating said a lot, and it made me feel good that she still wanted to be part of the study, and it wasn't something that was an annoyance to her. That's a terrible word, but...
No, I totally understand. It sounds like sort of that people were given the opportunity to connect with each other in a way that it created a research community that was actually invested in what they were up to. Like you said, they wanted to see the project play out.
Yep, definitely. And I think having the mixed methods approach, also utilizing the bulletin board study, allows them to be part of the group.
Yeah.
So they're able to see the other people who are participating in the study. They're able to see their names and what their posts are. And for them, it's also been this year-long thing that they've been a part of. So it's kind of cool to see how their interactions are changing over time too.
So you're saying it's mixed methods. That would involve the bulletin board itself.
Yes.
People who aren't aware of what that looks like, I imagine it would be similar to something like Reddit or something along those lines, where people are posting and then given an opportunity to reply to the original poster or to other posts in the thing?
Exactly. So the moderator, who is usually myself, will post the topic of conversation. Then anybody can go ahead and post a reply, or they can reply to each other's posts as well.
That's handy. Now, there would be surveys as well?
Yes.
Okay. And could you give us an idea what some of these topics were? What did we want to find out from this group of millennials?
Yeah, so we just wanted to know their opinions and their life experiences and what they liked and didn't like. And we also maybe were trying to relieve millennials of some stereotypes.
Okay.
So we didn't want to just ask social media habits, because everybody asks social media habits. We aim to get a little bit deeper. So sometimes we talked about life and death. The current month is emotions and personality. We've talked about finances and education. We've talked about politics. We've talked about religion. So we're trying to go all over the board. We're trying to see where our group stands and maybe break down some of those stereotypes that millennials are just stuck to their phone all day.
That's awesome. Why did we do this project? What was the point behind it? Was it just information gathering and norm building, or was it a pilot project to prove a mixed methods approach?
Kind of all of the above. So we aim to set the bar with research with millennials.
Okay.
And we wanted to exemplify how that could be done using our community software. So since millennials are a hard group to engage, we thought that we would create the to-do list for how to do it.
Okay.
And so we wanted to be able to produce a report at the end of it that would show other researchers who might be interested in doing a similar study all of the steps necessary, but also to prove how effective it can be when you're using an online community.
Now, we're 10 months in of 12 months. I know we do have a couple of write-ups available about some of the findings that we found so far. Are these available on the Insightrix Communities website?
Yes. At the moment, there is the report listed in one of the blog articles. We are in the process of creating a specific page on our website for the Young Futures Project. So that's still a work in progress. We do want to keep our participants in the loop of their findings because I think it's always fun to see what is coming out of what you've participated in. So we're a little bit behind schedule on the reports, but they are kind of coming together slowly but surely. And we do fully intend to have a page on the website dedicated to it.
Excellent. Well, I'd encourage everybody to go check it out. It's a heck of a project. So that's one of the kind of projects that you can actually do. It's a mixed methods is a good way of looking at it, right? Because you're doing both qual and quant research, or qualitative and quantitative research. The Insightrix community software is pretty interesting in that it's very flexible. We can use it for pretty much any kind of research for any kind of client. Could you explain some of the other kinds of research that we've been using our panels for, or our MROCs for?
Yep. So we have also engaged in some shorter term projects. And so what this means is anything from a 3-month study to a 3-day study. Usually those are corporate researchers who are either looking to engage with a target sample of their customers and or their employees. So one community in specific that I'm thinking of, they ran a 3-day study. They had both customers of theirs plus their employees. And the way that it worked is that researchers in our office acted as moderators. I helped set up the community from the technical standpoint. And then we were able to engage with both groups. We had a really clearly defined research objective and pre-approved moderator guides and topics of conversation. And it was a success. People were notified about it before it launched. People were expecting it. They were able to go in, log in, access the discussions, put down their opinions, and it was as easy as that. So the beauty of that is when you're running a short project, you don't need to recruit people to be at an office at a specific time during the middle of the week, which is impossible for everyone. People were able to still participate in it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but they were able to do it once they were sitting at home on their couch.
Stuff you can do in your pajamas.
On their lunch break, exactly. Or in the case of the employees, I think they were allotted office time to do it, but they didn't have to go anywhere. So it was just that 1 hour of time taken up, not the hour of travel plus the time to get set up, plus the time to do it, plus the time to come back, which then all of a sudden turns into a 5-hour time commitment.
That's very convenient then. And the stuff that they're doing with their community, that client was actually doing mixed methods as well, right? So it's not just a qual machine. You're not just getting opinions, ideas. It's not an online focus group, although it can be used sort of as that. You're also getting hard empirical quantitative measurement out of it too, right?
Definitely. I guess the beauty of it is that it is flexible to the needs of each client.
Neat.
And those needs are going to change over time too. So a client may envision that they're going to run mostly quant, and then they're going to notice that they're going to want some deeper insights, some explanation and context to back up those facts. So they can then go ahead and run a discussion as a follow-up activity. They also do have the power to target those discussions based on the survey answers that have been gathered already. So I guess at the end of the day, you do have complete flexibility over quantitative research, qualitative research, and how those two things can interplay.
Neat. So not all communities or MROCs have the ability to do full marketing email campaigns. The Insightrix Communities one does. Can you tell me how that could be useful?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have the option to run email campaigns from the platform. And what this means is that it's from the community. So whatever your community is named, that's who it's technically from.
Oh, so the branding carries over.
The branding carries over. And so this allows you to communicate and correspond with your community members as often as you like. And then the content can vary as well. So this could mean just general correspondence. This could be notifications or alerts. It can also run as survey reminders. So you have the option to embed a survey link into the email campaign where people can go ahead and just click on the link and have instant access to the survey. You can run reminders for the discussions that are available, or maybe you want to go ahead and try to re-engage people who haven't logged in for a while. What that's called is an activity status, and so you can set the parameters on these activity statuses. So what I mean by that is, say you want to designate activity status 1 to be people who have logged in between 0 and 90 days ago.
Sure.
And then level 2 could be 90 to 180 days ago, and then level 3 could be 180 plus. You might want to run an email campaign to try to re-engage those level 2 people, just to remind them that you're there, just to remind them maybe of the incentives that you have available in your community. And then also maybe once they get to level 3, you might choose to terminate their membership and re-recruit. So it's a good way to measure panel health, and it allows you to target the messaging and target the information that you're sending out to people based on how active they are.
Sounds like a really good engagement tool.
Definitely.
You know, if you got people that are not engaging as much, you can give them a little nudge, and if they're out and they're not really engaging at all, you can get them out of there and make room for somebody who is.
Definitely. And again, you do have the ability to run as many of these email campaigns as you like.
Nice.
You can target them not only by activity levels, but by any other measure in your community. And you can also create templates. So say you want to create a really highly branded email campaign, you can go ahead, just do that once and reuse the template every time so that you don't have to recreate all the branding elements for your email.
Handy. Now, I know municipal governments, heck, I've seen federal governments use them, provincial governments. The communities are pretty handy when it comes to policy research.
Definitely.
Can you give us some examples of how governments or policymakers could use a community?
Yep. So when you're dealing with a large number of people who you anticipate to invite to your community and anticipate for them to be members, you're going to want to start in slow stages. So this usually means that you're going to want to do some pre-testing within your office. Then you can go out to the wider group, maybe friends and family, and then finally you can go out to the public at large. You're going to want to make sure that all the kinks are ironed out before you go out to your citizenry. But basically the way that our clients are using it is to gauge satisfaction for public events. They can use the discussions to voice their opinions if there's any areas that need attention. So for instance, maybe there's a certain road in the city that has terrible potholes. You can also go ahead and run just general information type surveys. So it could be anything from pets. Maybe you want to know the amount of pets that are in your municipality, or maybe you want to know energy consumption and energy consumption patterns. It's really specific to the client. With municipal government, though, we do have different departments that are going to have different agendas and are going to need different information. So that's really handy to be able to have as many admins as you like in the back end to run surveys that are specific to their department's needs.
Well, that's interesting. So I'm not sure that this is a case with all communities or MROCs, but I know for a fact we've got granular admin ability with ours, meaning that just that, we can break it down so each department can run its own admins and further its own needs.
Exactly. So
that's really handy.
One current client has what they call super users. So it's a team of 4 people who have basically ultimate control over their online community. That being said, that means that all of the permissions in the community are given to these people.
Okay.
After that, they know that there's a number of departments that are going to want to run their own surveys, but they want to have some quality control in there as well. So the way that it works is that you can dictate that certain people can program surveys without launching them. So all of those people from the various departments can go ahead, program their own surveys, but it's not until those 4 super users go in that they can actually make them front-facing to the public.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's a way to distribute the work and to utilize the resources that you have, but to have some funneling in terms of what's approved and what actually goes forward and front-facing to the public.
And that's a big deal, because the last thing you want to do is have people in your community putting out disruptive messages, that kind of thing. I've used a couple of bulletin boards, they say like Reddit, that kind of thing. We all know from our times on social media as well that certain people just like to disrupt conversation they're not really trying to put in. So having that level of control and funneling is pretty handy, I imagine.
Yep. With the discussions, every single community member has the option to report inappropriate or abusive posts as well.
Handy.
So there is that element of self-monitoring for the community members. But in terms of that kind of rhetoric that we see in social media, we notice that it's greatly reduced in the online communities. So the people aren't as anonymous in these online communities. They have a purpose to be there. They have now an outlet to have their voice heard, and it's not a bunch of sand throwing like we usually see in social media.
Moderated discussion, I guess, is the big thing here. Yeah.
Exactly. So that being said, I mean, we do have the measures in place to be able to remove those types of things if they arise. Yeah. But through our experience, we're noticing that that is not even a fraction as common as it is in social media.
It's probably because, now just tell me if I'm wrong, but is it possibly because the people that are engaging in the communities are just that engaging? They want to be part of the research itself? They're not just respondents, they're actual participants in the research, or is that?
Yeah, and it's also something that they have a vested interest in.
Yeah.
Either it's their city, their town, or it's...
that's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, or it's the corporation that they purchase a lot of goods from. You know, people want to have their opinions heard, and I think people also know that their credibility is reduced once they start acting inappropriately.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about market researchers and how they would use online communities, market research online communities. So I think we probably should talk a little bit more about it, just because when it comes down to market research, these things are just amazing tools.
Definitely. So the way that they can function for market researchers is quite diverse. So there's kind of 2 main ways that comes to mind. The first is that the market research company would have a client purchase a community as a third-party tool to be able to run the projects that their client is wanting. So the client would therefore produce the sample, maybe it's their customers, then they could go ahead and be the moderators, be the market research brains behind the software. The other way is that a market research company could purchase the software right out and rebrand it every time they have a new client, and say that their client only wants to run a 3-day project, but then they have another client in the funnel who needs another 3-day project next week. They could go ahead and have full control over that panel, market it with their branding, the market research company branding, and then run those short-term projects for their clients.
Cool. What kind of projects are usually being done through these? Is it brand research? Is it product testing?
It's all of the above.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we do offer the option to embed ad testing and product testing tools into the community as well. So it's really specific on the client. We're quite flexible on the types of engagements that you can do. And it really does depend on the client.
Now, a lot of market research online communities are built by software development companies or, let's just say, apps builders, that kind of thing, which can lead to some problems in that the people who are building them don't really know research very well. Insightrix communities, online communities, aren't like that. Is that correct?
That's right. So our software was built in our office by our development team, but the whole journey was influenced by the market research professionals in our office as well. So as an account manager, I'm in this really cool and unique position where if there's any client concerns on the technical side, I can go to the development team right in office and get them addressed.
Wow.
If there's any issues on the market research side, I can go to the market researchers in our office and get professional advice to give back to our clients as well. So it's really cool to be able to have all of our bases covered and for every single element of the technological development to be influenced by the market research insight.
So it's market research software or just research software built by research professionals.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy.
Yeah, definitely.
Right on. It sounds like market research online communities are probably one of the more flexible and useful tools in a researcher's pocket.
Yeah.
Really, when it comes down to it, and that not all market research online communities are created equal, but that's okay because they all do different things. The Insightrix Communities online community is a good example of one in that it does pretty much everything anybody could ever want of a market research community.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right on. Have a great day. All right, I'm here with Thome from Affinity Credit Union. How's it going today?
Good, thanks.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on. Affinity Credit Union just wrapped up a project that involved a market research online community. Can you tell us about the project itself and what made your organization choose to go with an online community?
Sure. So what we set out to do was define what our remarkable member experience means to consumers as well as our Affinity Credit Union members. Mm-hmm. The purpose of the project, or the output of the project, is to inform strategy and help us improve on an ongoing basis just the service delivery to our members. And so we've reached out to Insightrix, as we have many times in the past, and chose to use the online panel methodology for the project. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason why we chose that is that it's, I guess, for a few reasons. First of all, it's quick, and often, when it comes to research projects like this, we have fairly tight timelines, so it's something that we can, or have been able to put together quite quickly. Mm-hmm. We can collect quantitative and qualitative data all at once, and, I was thinking about this before the call, and these online panels or communities are, they're structured over a number of days, which allows the panelists more time to consider what it is that we're asking them, and maybe result in better quality responses. So, beyond that, you have the ability to host a fairly large group, and the cost is reasonable compared to other research methods that we may have considered.
Right on. And how did the project end up going in the long run? How was your experience using the market research online community?
It was very good. Yeah, so, this isn't the first time that we've used Insightrix or the online community, mm-hmm. and so our expectations were set pretty high, and you guys delivered on it again.
That's good to hear.
All of the findings were actionable and insightful. The best part about it was we were able to draw on some findings from previous research that we've done with you, and so it helped paint maybe a more complete picture for us. So, yeah, very happy with the results.
Excellent. Thanks for your insight on the project and how you used the community. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks, and you have a great day, Adam.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm speaking with Cody from Affinity Credit Unions. How's your day going today, Dylan?
Doing well, Duncan. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about market research online communities today in this episode, and just spoke with Adam about how Affinity Credit Union just finished a project using an online community. We wanted to ask you a little bit about what using an online community for your company's research was all about. Now,
Sure.
You were involved in this project as well. Perhaps you can tell us how you were involved and give us a little bit of information about the project itself?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Adam's my direct manager, and he basically put me in charge of leading this project. We weren't really sure how to start, but he and I decided that likely, given that we wanted to cover respondents or participants from across the province. We thought online communities would be best, and from there I kind of just ran with the project. Once we decided on the Insightrix Communities, I was kind of the project lead on our end, working closely with the Insightrix researchers and community team to get the project up and running.
And can you give me a little bit about the project itself?
Yeah, so we have some core marketing segments, marketing persona segments of potential members, and we basically designed the research or the community research to involve a subset of those core segments. And because we wanted to really be representative of the province, at least as much as we could, the communities work great for, we didn't all have to be in one place. Potential members could interact with us on their terms through the community, and we didn't have to kind of drive across the province doing in-person focus groups. So it really worked well for provincial coverage for some dispersed groups.
Yeah, that level of convenience has got to be pretty handy, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely we were really just wanting to define kind of customer experiences. We wanted to understand customer experiences across different industries, not only banking, but really like what are poor experiences, or what makes an experience, I guess, terrible compared to remarkable, regardless of industry. So that was really the goal. So it was pretty open-ended, but we feel we did get really detailed information using the Insightrix community product.
Yeah, in this community, your project involved a lot of bulletin board discussion groups, online diaries, I've been told.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we actually, we know the community software has both the bulletin board and diary option, and we actually went more with, I guess, a diary, if you want to call it that, because we didn't feel there was much value in our project for having the participants interact with one another. We thought that it would be more of a distraction, so it was actually beneficial that the way we structured it was the participants only interacted with an Insightrix moderator.
Okay.
And it really helped us to just get as much detail out of every participant that we could.
Yeah, that having that kind of feedback's got to be pretty useful, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think just in our case, I mean, we're talking about experiences, so everyone's experience or what makes it great for someone is different person to person. So the fact that they couldn't see what other people were writing and we didn't get any groupthink going on, I think that was really beneficial.
Now, somebody's organization has used market research online communities before, and in your research, is there anything that you'd like to tell those who haven't used an online community in the past, or someone who's maybe thinking about using one in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on your project needs, but there are instances definitely where online communities are for sure the best solution, and whether it's long-term or short-term, they can fit into both type of research objectives. But I think definitely key things are, geographic coverage and convenience, so being inclusive of your membership, your customer base, your association members, regardless of where they live, is huge, because they can participate on their terms and on their own devices and on their time. So that's probably the biggest benefit, and it's really helpful because we do have members across the province. So that was the biggest benefit, and also the ease and speed at which we were able to collect some pretty detailed qualitative and also some quantitative data on top of that was excellent.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. I really appreciate your insight on this.
For sure. Thanks, Duncan. Thanks for having me, and great work to the Insightrix team and the service they provided.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And there you have it. I'd like to thank Adam, Thome, and Dylan Cody from Affinity Credit Union for taking the time out to speak with us about one of their recent research experiences with market research online communities. Their insight about how their organization used an online community in one of their recent research projects was especially enlightening. I'd also like to thank Megan McDowell. Her insight into the many uses and aspects of market research online communities as an account manager at Insightrix Communities division of Insightrix Research was invaluable to the episode. If you'd like to learn more about market research online communities, head over to the Insightrix Communities website at www.insightrixcommunities.com. There you can get even more information about how you can put these powerful research tools to work for you. And of course, I'd like to thank our rapidly growing and loyal group of listeners. Without you, none of this would be possible. As always, I'd like to encourage you to head over to the podcast listening platform you're on right now and like and review our podcast. It's a great way to make sure the show gets in front of others who have an interest in research. If you have any questions about market research, or if you have an idea for a market research project and you'd like to speak about getting it underway, you can contact Insightrix through the Insightrix website, www.insightrix.com, or email us at info@insightrix.com. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode of Stories of Market Research, the Insightrix podcast.